The sun set behind the alien city, casting a soft golden glow over the peaceful landscape. Towering trees with glowing blue leaves swayed gently in the breeze, their bioluminescence creating a serene atmosphere. The air felt thick with the scent of unfamiliar plants, but there was a calmness to the planet, a tranquility that made the young diplomat feel at ease. His name was Michael, and he had traveled across the stars to this far-off world as part of a cultural exchange between humanity and the alien species known as the Althar. It was the first official visit from Earth, and Michael had spent weeks preparing for this moment. He had read all the reports, memorized the customs, and studied the alien language, but nothing could have prepared him for the reality of being here, on this strange and beautiful world. As Michael walked through the central plaza of the settlement, his eyes took in the impressive alien architecture. The buildings were unlike anything he had seen before, crafted from materials that seemed to shimmer in the fading light. They were sleek, with curves that mimicked the natural flow of the planet's landscape, and their surfaces reflected the colors of the sky above. The settlement was a mix of organic beauty and advanced technology, a perfect balance between nature and progress. He was accompanied by one of the Althar's leaders, a tall, graceful figure named Zora, who had been assigned to guide him during his stay. Zora's skin was a deep, iridescent purple, and her eyes gleamed like silver stars. Despite her beauty and the grace with which she moved, there was an intensity in her gaze, a quiet wisdom that spoke volumes without a single word. "Michael," Zora said, her voice soft but carrying a hint of command, "we are honored to have you with us." "I trust your journey was comfortable," Michael nodded, adjusting his stance as he tried to find the right words. "Yes, it was. Incredible, this place, it's unlike anything I've ever imagined. You've truly created something amazing here." Zora smiled, though it was subtle, and gave a small nod. "We are proud of what we have built, but more than that, we are eager to learn from you, just as you have come to learn from us." As they walked through the plaza, Michael couldn't help but notice the curious eyes of the alien citizens. The Althar were tall and elegant, with smooth, shiny skin and eyes that shimmered like precious gems. Despite their alien features, there was a familiarity to them, an unspoken understanding that made Michael feel welcome. He had read about the Althar's peaceful nature, their deep respect for life and balance, but seeing it firsthand was different. It was something more than just a peaceful society. It was a way of being. After a few minutes, Zora led him to a quieter part of the settlement, where the sound of soft chatter and laughter could be heard in the distance. There, sitting on a low platform surrounded by tall, glowing plants, was an alien woman and her child. The woman was watching Michael and Zora intently, her expression unreadable. Her skin was a soft, pale green, and her long hair flowed like liquid silver, catching the light as it moved. She was beautiful in a way that was both alien and familiar, her features sharp but not harsh, and there was something about her that drew Michael's attention. The child, however, was a different story altogether. The young Althar child was small, no more than 6 years old by human standards, with soft yellow skin and large, inquisitive eyes that seemed to soak in everything around them. The child was playing with something in their hands, a small, colorful object that looked like a toy. As soon as the child noticed Michael and Zora, they stopped, their eyes wide with curiosity. Zora gave a small smile and turned to Michael. "This is Lyra and her child, Irian," she said. "They are a part of our community, and we have invited them to meet you today." Michael gave a polite nod, his eyes flicking from the woman to the child. He felt a little nervous, unsure of what to say or how to act in front of them. He had been trained for diplomatic meetings, but this was different. The alien woman, Lyra, didn't speak, but her gaze was fixed on him and her eyes were intense. She seemed to be assessing him, measuring him with an unspoken understanding that made him feel vulnerable. Irian, on the other hand, was more open, their curiosity clear in the way they stared at Michael, waiting for him to make the first move. Michael reached into his bag, pulling out a small, brightly colored toy, one that he had brought from Earth as a gift for the children of the Althar. It was a simple thing, a small stuffed animal in the shape of a lion, with soft fur and a smiling face. It was nothing special, really, just a small token of goodwill from humanity. He knelt down in front of Irian, extending the toy with a smile. "Would you like this?" he asked gently, trying his best to speak in a calm and friendly manner. Irian's eyes widened in surprise, and for a moment there was a stillness between them. The child hesitated, unsure of the gesture, but then reached out slowly and took the toy in their hands. The child's face lit up with a wide grin and they held it close to their chest, clearly delighted. Michael felt a sense of warmth spread through him as he watched the child's joy. It was a simple thing, offering a toy, but in that moment it felt like more. Irian's laughter was like a bell, clear and pure, echoing through the plaza. For a brief moment, everything seemed to slow down, and Michael could hear the sound of the wind rustling through the trees and the distant hum of the city. It was as though the world itself had paused, giving him the chance to connect with this alien child in a way he never thought possible. But then, Michael's gaze shifted back to Lyra. She had been watching the entire exchange, her eyes still fixed on him. There was no expression on her face, but something about the way she observed him made Michael uneasy. It wasn't hostility, nor was it warmth. It was something else entirely, something deeper, more complex. Lyra's silence was deafening, and Michael wondered what she was thinking. Was she pleased with his gesture, or was there something about it that had unsettled her? Michael couldn't tell, but he knew one thing for sure. He had just made a small step into their world, and he wasn't sure what the consequences of that step might be. The silence stretched on for a moment before Lyra finally spoke, her voice soft but firm. "You are kind to our child," she said, her tone giving nothing away. "But you must understand, Michael, that gestures such as these are not taken lightly." Michael felt his heart skip a beat. "What do you mean?" he asked, his voice betraying a hint of confusion. Lyra's eyes glinted, and for the first time Michael saw a flicker of something like a warning. "The gift you give is not just a toy. It is a symbol, a bridge between our worlds, and with that bridge comes responsibility." Michael stood there for a moment, trying to process what she had just said. The weight of her words settled on him like a heavy cloud, and he couldn't help but wonder what he had just set into motion. The child, oblivious to the tension in the air, continued to play with the toy, their giggles filling the space around them. But Michael couldn't shake the feeling that this simple moment had just become the beginning of something much bigger than he had anticipated. As they continued to stand there, the sun dipped lower in the sky, and the stars began to appear, sparkling in the darkening heavens. Michael looked up, taking in the beauty of the alien world, but his mind was elsewhere, caught in the web of the unspoken connection he had just made. He had offered a toy to an alien child, and now, he realized, he had unknowingly opened a door. What lay beyond that door, he wasn't sure. But the journey was only just beginning. The next day, Michael woke early, the sun just beginning to rise over the alien landscape. The sky was a strange mix of violet and orange, casting an ethereal light over the glowing plants and crystalline structures that made up the settlement. The air was fresh, and the quiet hum of the city's energy systems added a low background melody to the peaceful silence. The first moments of the day always felt special here. This was a world that had never known the chaos of war or the burdens of greed that so often plagued human societies. The day before had been overwhelming. Michael had spent hours walking through the settlement, meeting various members of the Althar community, learning about their culture, and getting a sense of the harmony they had created. It was all so different from the fractured world he knew back on Earth. The people here lived in a way that seemed almost utopian. There was no poverty, no conflict. Everything appeared to be in perfect balance. The Althar had mastered the art of coexistence, and it was evident in every corner of their society. As he got ready, Michael thought about the encounter with Lyra and her child, Irian. He couldn't stop thinking about the way Lyra had watched him, as though she were evaluating his every action. There had been something about her demeanor, something deeper than just the polite distance that most diplomats expected. She wasn't just observing his actions, she was weighing his worth, measuring the sincerity of his gestures. It was something that Michael hadn't expected from a species so seemingly peaceful. There had been a time, back on Earth, when he had been told that the Althar were a gentle people, focused on knowledge, peace, and understanding. But Lyra's silence, her watchful gaze, told a different story. She had been kind, but there was also a strength behind her presence that suggested a deeper wisdom. Michael couldn't help but wonder what role she played in the larger picture of the Althar society. After a simple breakfast, Michael set out once more, accompanied by Zora, who was once again his guide for the day. Zora was as graceful as always, moving through the settlement with a natural elegance that Michael could never hope to match. The two of them walked through the central plaza, where the hustle and bustle of daily life filled the air. The sound of laughter echoed from a group of children playing, their voices high and carefree. Michael smiled at the sight. It was strange but comforting to see such joy in a place so far from home. As they walked, Zora spoke about the importance of the upcoming diplomatic talks. The Althar were eager to form a lasting bond with humanity, but they were also cautious. They understood that their world, their culture, could not be taken for granted. It had taken them centuries to find peace with each other, and they weren't going to let that peace be disrupted by careless gestures or misunderstandings. "We are a people of patience, Michael," Zora explained as they walked along a shimmering pathway. "We believe that true understanding takes time. We have learned to listen, not just with our ears, but with our hearts. It is why our society functions so well. There is no rushing here, no hurry. Every action, every word is chosen with care." Michael nodded, taking in her words. He had heard about the Althar's patient nature, their deep connection to the world around them. But hearing it directly from Zora made him realize how much he still had to learn. The diplomat had often thought of the Althar as a perfect example of peace, but peace was not something that could simply be granted. It had to be earned, nurtured, and protected. The gift he had given Irian the toy had been a small gesture, but it had meant more than he had imagined. And Lyra's words from the day before echoed in his mind. "The gift you give is not just a toy. It is a symbol, a bridge between our worlds." They arrived at a large, open square, where several Althar were gathered, engaging in discussions about various topics. Some were sharing knowledge, others debating solutions to the challenges their world faced, while others seemed to simply enjoy the quiet company of their peers. It was a space where ideas were exchanged freely, with no judgment, and Michael was struck by the calmness that radiated from the group. Zora led him to a smaller gathering, where a few Althar elders sat beneath a giant tree. The tree's massive branches reached high into the sky, its bark shimmering with an iridescent glow. Beneath its shade, the elders sat in quiet conversation, their faces peaceful, but their eyes sharp and alert. They were the keepers of knowledge, the ones who had guided their people for generations. It was here that Michael would meet with them to discuss the future of human-Althar relations. As they approached, the elders looked up and greeted them with silent nods. The air felt thick with respect, and Michael couldn't help but feel like he was stepping into something important, something that went beyond mere diplomacy. The elder closest to him was an Althar male with silver-gray skin and bright green eyes. He motioned for Michael to sit, and as Michael did, the elder spoke in a voice that was deep and soothing. "We welcome you, Michael of Earth," the elder said. "Your people have come with much to offer, but you must understand, there is more at play here than you realize. Our connection to your kind is not just about what we can give each other. It is about the choices we make in the coming days, the paths we decide to walk together." Michael listened intently, realizing that the weight of this decision was greater than he had imagined. He had come here expecting to negotiate trade deals and scientific exchanges, but the Althar were not interested in that alone. They were looking for something more profound, a partnership, a union built on trust, understanding, and respect. "We have studied your world, Michael," the elder continued. "We know your history, your struggles. We understand the mistakes your people have made, and we hope that you will learn from them. But we also see the potential in you. We see the fire in humanity that drives you to explore, to grow, to reach for the stars. That is why we are willing to extend our hand." Michael was quiet for a moment, reflecting on the elder's words. It was strange, this feeling of being both humbled and hopeful at the same time. Here were beings who had mastered the art of living in harmony with their world, yet they saw something in humanity that they valued. Perhaps there was hope for Earth after all. After a brief silence, Zora spoke, breaking the stillness. "There is something else we must discuss, Michael," she said. "You have made a gesture with Irian, a gesture that was not only kind but significant. The gift you gave was accepted, but it also comes with a responsibility. You must understand that, as you have offered this symbol of goodwill, we must now ensure that our relationship with your people remains strong. The toy you gave Irian is a representation of the trust we are willing to place in you. It is not just a trinket, it is a bond." The weight of her words hit Michael like a wave. He had known, deep down, that this simple act was more than just a gift. But he hadn't realized how much more it had meant to the Althar. It wasn't just about giving. It was about forging a connection, one that could either strengthen or break depending on the actions that followed. As the meeting continued, Michael felt both the excitement and the pressure of the situation. This wasn't just diplomacy anymore. It was something far more personal. He had made a connection with Irian, and now he realized that this small gesture was just the beginning. There were much bigger stakes at play, and the road ahead would require patience, understanding, and above all, respect. The elders spoke for several hours, discussing everything from scientific collaboration to cultural exchanges. But the most important thing Michael learned that day was that the Althar weren't looking for just another partnership. They were seeking something more, a lasting bond, one that could help both species grow and evolve together. This was not just a meeting of minds, it was a meeting of hearts. As the sun began to set, Michael left the gathering with Zora, his mind racing. He had entered this alien world with the simple goal of establishing peaceful relations. But now, as he walked through the streets of the settlement, he realized that the Althar had given him something far more valuable than he had expected. They had given him a chance to build something truly meaningful, not just for his people, but for both species. The gift of a toy had opened a door, but Michael now understood that it was up to him, and humanity, to walk through it with honor, patience, and wisdom. The days began to blur together as Michael continued his stay on the Althar homeworld. The initial awe he had felt upon arriving had slowly given way to a deeper understanding of the complexities that underpinned this alien society. Each day, he was introduced to new customs, new ideas, and new people who seemed to share a collective vision of peace and unity. But the more he learned, the more he realized how much he still didn't know. The city, which had once seemed peaceful and serene, now appeared to hold secrets within its shining buildings and luminous landscapes. As he walked through the marketplace, Michael often caught glimpses of individuals who seemed to look at him not just as a visitor but as something more. They saw him as a representative, a symbol of humanity's future, and that made him feel the weight of his role. It was no longer just about exchanging goods or knowledge. It was about forming a bond, a lasting connection that could shape the future of both species. One morning, Michael was summoned to a more formal gathering. Zora had informed him that the time had come for the Althar elders to begin their negotiations with him. The discussions would be pivotal in deciding the future of humanity's relationship with the Althar, and Michael knew that the stakes were higher than ever. He had learned so much in the past few days, but he also understood that what had seemed like a simple diplomatic mission had turned into something much greater. The gathering took place in the heart of the city, in a grand hall carved out of the rock itself. The walls shimmered with a soft, otherworldly glow, reflecting the pale light that filtered through the skylights above. The air was filled with a gentle hum, a constant reminder of the advanced technology that powered this peaceful world. Michael stood at the center of the hall, facing the council of Althar elders, all of whom had gathered to discuss the future of their people's relationship with humanity. The eldest of the council, a dignified Althar male with skin the color of midnight, was the first to speak. His voice was calm and steady like the ripples of a quiet pond. "Michael of Earth," he began, his words carrying an air of authority. "You have come to us with an offering of peace, and we have accepted it. But as you well know, peace is not something that can be taken for granted. It must be nurtured, built, and protected." Michael nodded, trying to remain composed. He had heard these words before, but now they held a different weight. This wasn't just a theoretical concept anymore. He was part of something that could change the course of both their civilizations. The elder continued, his eyes narrowing slightly. "We have observed your species for some time, Michael. We know of your history, your struggles, your wars, your moments of great achievement and failure. We have learned much, but there is still much to understand. And now it is your turn to show us that humanity can be trusted with the responsibility that comes with forming a bond between our people." The council was silent, the tension in the room palpable. Michael felt his heart race. This was the moment. His words would shape the future. He took a deep breath, standing tall, and spoke from the heart. "I understand that what we're offering goes beyond just a simple exchange of knowledge or resources. It's a chance to learn from one another to grow together. Humanity has made many mistakes, but we've also shown that we can change. We can evolve. We're not perfect, but we want to learn. And we're ready to work alongside you to build something better together." The words seemed to hang in the air for a moment before the elder nodded, his expression unreadable. Your words are promising, but words alone are not enough. You must prove your sincerity, and this is where the gift you gave to Irian comes into play. Michael felt a chill run down his spine. He had known that the toy had a deeper significance, but now he was beginning to understand just how much it had meant. It was not just a gesture of kindness, it was a test. A test to see if humanity could be trusted with the delicate balance the Althar had spent millennia cultivating. The gift you offered Irian was accepted, but it also placed a certain weight upon you, the elder continued. It symbolizes your willingness to understand, to connect, but it also carries the responsibility of our trust. Do you understand this, Michael? Michael nodded, feeling the full weight of his actions. I do, he replied, his voice steady despite the growing tension in his chest. I understand that we have to prove ourselves, and I am willing to do whatever it takes. The elder studied him for a long moment, as though measuring the depth of his sincerity. Finally, he spoke again. Very well. We will give you the opportunity to prove that you are worthy of our trust, but this will not be easy. You will be tested, not just by us, but by your own people as well. The room seemed to grow even quieter, and Michael's mind raced. He had expected negotiations, agreements, and perhaps some formalities, but this was something different. The Althar were not offering simple terms. They were offering a challenge. What kind of test? Michael asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The elder's eyes gleamed with an ancient knowledge. We will observe how you and your people respond to the challenges ahead. We will see if you can maintain the balance we have cultivated. We will see if you can offer more than just words. If you succeed, then the bond between our people will be strengthened. If you fail, there will be consequences, ones that may not be reversible. The weight of his words hung in the air like a storm cloud, and Michael could feel the gravity of the situation settling over him. This was no longer about a simple diplomatic mission. It was about the survival of a fragile peace, a peace that would require every ounce of strength, patience, and wisdom that he and humanity could muster. After a long silence, the elder spoke once more. You may leave now. But know that the path ahead will not be easy. We will be watching, Michael, and we will be waiting to see what you and your people are truly made of. With that, Michael was dismissed from the council. As he walked out of the hall, Zora fell in step beside him, her face calm but her eyes reflecting the seriousness of the situation. You've just been given the challenge of a lifetime, Zora said quietly, but I believe you are capable of meeting it. Michael didn't respond immediately. His mind was still processing the conversation with the elder. What had seemed like a straightforward diplomatic mission had suddenly become a test of humanity's character, and the stakes were higher than he had ever imagined. As they walked through the streets of the city, Michael couldn't shake the feeling that everything had changed. The peaceful world around him, with its glowing plants and serene atmosphere, now felt more like a fragile bubble, a bubble that could burst at any moment if he and humanity didn't rise to the occasion. He thought of the toy he had given Irian, the first simple gesture that had started this journey. He had thought of it as just a small token, a way to break the ice between their species. But now he understood that it was much more. It was a symbol of trust. And with that trust came an enormous responsibility. The days ahead would be difficult. He could feel it in the pit of his stomach. But he also felt a renewed sense of purpose. This wasn't just about diplomacy. It wasn't even just about humanity's future. It was about something much larger, the future of both the Althar and humanity, intertwined in a way that neither species could have predicted. As Michael walked through the settlement, he knew that the coming days would test everything he had learned, everything he believed. But one thing was certain, he was ready. He had no choice but to be ready. The path ahead was uncertain, but one thing was clear, humanity's journey had only just begun. The days that followed were filled with uncertainty and quiet determination. Michael spent most of his time in the central hall, meeting with various members of the Althar leadership, working on establishing mutual agreements, and participating in the many ceremonial events that marked his stay on their world. But despite the outward appearance of progress, he knew that there was a heavy weight hanging over him. The Althar had made it clear that this was not just a diplomatic mission. It was a test, and the stakes were high. The challenge that had been presented to him had not been fully explained. The elders had said that they would be watching, that they would be evaluating humanity's actions, but what that truly meant was still unclear. Michael had tried to get more information, but each time the Althar gave him cryptic answers, as though they were waiting for him to make the next move. He had spent countless hours reflecting on the conversations he had had with Zora, with the Council, and with the other members of the Althar Society. They had been kind, welcoming even, but there was always an undercurrent of scrutiny in their eyes. They were evaluating him, measuring not just his words but his actions. Every decision he made seemed to carry consequences that went beyond what he had imagined. It was clear now that this mission was about far more than just creating an alliance between two species. It was about proving that humanity could be trusted, that they were capable of handling the responsibility that came with the knowledge and technology the Althar could offer. One evening, after a long day of meetings, Michael found himself walking alone through the streets of the settlement. The lights of the city twinkled softly, casting long shadows across the path. The air was cool and crisp, and for the first time since his arrival, he allowed himself to relax. He wasn't being watched now, not directly. It was rare to find a moment like this, where he could simply think and reflect without the constant pressure of being a representative of Earth. As he walked, his mind drifted to the toy, the small, colorful object that had once seemed so insignificant to him. He had given it to Irian, the young Althar child, as a gesture of goodwill. But now, in the quiet of the evening, it seemed like much more than that. The elders had made it clear that this small act of kindness had placed a great deal of trust in his hands. It was a symbol, they had said, of the bond between their species, and that bond had to be protected, nurtured. The toy was not just a gift, it was a responsibility, one that Michael hadn't fully understood until now. He stopped walking and looked up at the sky. The stars were different here, more vibrant and alive than the stars he had known on Earth. It was as though the universe itself was watching, waiting to see what would happen next. He closed his eyes for a moment, letting the peace of the moment wash over him. But as much as he wanted to relax, the reality of the situation never left him. The weight of the task ahead was always there, like a shadow that followed him wherever he went. When Michael opened his eyes again, he noticed a figure standing in the distance. It was Lyra. She was watching him just as she had before. Her presence was as imposing as it had been the first time they met, but there was a difference now. She was no longer just an observer. She had become a symbol of everything that Michael was trying to understand about the Althar, a constant reminder of the delicate balance that humanity had to navigate. He took a deep breath and walked toward her. As he approached, Lyra spoke without looking at him. "You are troubled, Michael," she said, her voice soft but carrying an undeniable weight. "I can see it in your eyes." Michael paused, unsure of what to say. He had never been good at hiding his emotions, and Lyra seemed to know him better than anyone else here. "It's just a lot to take in," he said finally. "I never expected it to be this difficult. I thought it was just about making deals, signing agreements. But this," he gestured around them, taking in the glowing streets, the quiet hum of the city. "This is more than that. It feels like everything is riding on this moment, like one wrong move could shatter everything." Lyra turned to face him then, her gaze intense but not unkind. "The Althar do not make decisions lightly," she said. "We know that trust is not given easily, and once it is given, it must be protected. That is why we are cautious. But we also see potential in you, Michael, in humanity." Michael met her gaze, his heart racing. "I just want to prove that we're worthy, that we can be trusted. But I'm not sure how to do that. I feel like every step I take is being judged." Lyra was silent for a moment, and Michael wondered if she was deciding whether or not to speak. Finally, she nodded slightly. "You are being judged, yes, but not in the way you think. It is not your actions that we judge. It is your intent. You must show us that you can be trusted, not just with the knowledge we can share, but with the responsibilities that come with it. You must show us that you are ready for what comes next." Michael's mind was spinning. The weight of her words was heavy, but they made sense. This wasn't about grand gestures or speeches. It was about something deeper, something more fundamental. It was about proving that humanity could rise above its history of conflict and chaos and step into a future where cooperation and understanding were possible. As the silence stretched between them, Michael thought of Earth, of the world he had left behind. It was a world filled with divisions, political, social, economic, but it was also a world filled with hope. There was a drive within humanity to push forward, to overcome, to reach for the stars. And that drive, he realized, was what had brought him here. It was what had brought humanity to the Althar doorstep. "I understand," he said finally. "I'll do whatever it takes. We'll prove ourselves. I'll prove myself." Lyra nodded again, her expression softening just slightly. "It is not just you who must prove themselves, Michael. It is your people, it is humanity as a whole, but I believe you are capable of this. You are already taking the first steps, and that is enough." Michael nodded in return, feeling a small sense of relief. He still didn't have all the answers, but he knew now what he had to do. He couldn't change everything overnight, but he could start by showing the Althar that humanity was capable of learning, of growing, and of building trust. The night was quiet as they stood there together, looking out over the city. The stars above seemed to shine a little brighter, as though the universe itself were watching. Michael wasn't sure what the future would hold, but for the first time since he had arrived, he felt a sense of hope. There was still much to be done, but perhaps, just perhaps, humanity was ready for the challenge ahead. After a long moment, Michael turned to leave. "Thank you, Lyra," he said, "for everything." She didn't respond immediately, but as he walked away, he heard her voice, soft and distant behind him. "Your journey is only just beginning, Michael, and the future is not as uncertain as you think. The path ahead will not be easy, but it will be worth it." Michael looked back once more, but Lyra was already gone, blending into the shadows of the city. He didn't know what the future would hold, but he knew one thing for sure. He was ready to face whatever came next. The future of both humanity and the Althar rested on the choices that lay ahead. But for the first time since arriving on this alien world, Michael truly believed that humanity had the potential to meet the challenge. And that belief, he realized, was the first step toward forging a future that would shape the stars themselves.